Okay, it is live. So we will wait a couple minutes. Hi, everybody. This is us trying to do something different. Technology tried to take us under, but we're not going to let it happen today.
Will not let it happen today. No, not today.
Not today. I don't know if you guys are familiar with how Facebook has updated their systems, but they are being very rigid about allowing Zoom to connect in. So it's just strange. So sometimes it goes off without a hitch, and then some days it's a bit of a struggle. But we are live. We are live. Come on in, hit that like and share button. I had it all set up, and then all of a sudden our cameras went black. So I had to start over. So like and share, and let's have a really, really good conversation. I'm super excited about it. So come on in the room.
Y'all gonna need your stuff for this one tonight.
You definitely gonna need your stuff for this one. Go ahead and grab a journal, get your coffee, your tea, get a blanket, maybe some Kleenex. But this is one of those conversations that warrants some soul searching. So you have to be ready to one, be transparent and vulnerable. And the beautiful thing about it is all of you guys are in the comfort of your home. So nobody can see you going through the motions or the emotions, I should say. So everything will be good. So while I am waiting on people to come in, for those who do not know the lovely Charmaine, I adore this young lady. I really feel like she was born before and then went away and came back because she is a wealth of knowledge beyond her years. Like when you talk to her age would make you think you clearly don't have the life experiences to speak from this place of wisdom. And I enjoy chit chatting with her. There's never a dull moment. We can be very serious one minute, incredibly goofy the next, but we will always make the experience worthwhile. And so, Shar, tell the people something maybe they do not know about you.
Well, for those that don't know me, my name is Charmaine. I go by Charlie. Everyone calls me Hey Charlie. It's just because everyone's always like, Hey Charmaine, and or like, Hey Charlie, I need you. So it just became a thing. I was born in Houston, but I'm from Austin, so you may recognize my little hippie-ish accent and some of the things that I say tonight. So just be prepared for that. But I love people. I'm loving people, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm learning to love people more. And I have a passion for all things creative, both in traditional forms of media, mediums, in digital media, arts, fashion. So that's just me. Oh, and I love God. I really love God. Because if I didn't love God, I would not be able to deal with people. So I love the Lord. Amen.
Amen. The one thing that Shar just always tries to shy away from is the fact that she has a melodious voice that she tries to act like, was in retirement or whatever. And so one of the things that is unique about her is that she is around people and she helps cultivate and curate talent and lifestyles and all of that. But she can do that because it's something that's embedded in who she is. And so that goes, we can't just let that not be spoken of,
Oh,
Sean.
yeah. I love music. I guess I can sing a little. I can hold a little of a tune.
You go a little tune. I feel like it's a little bit more than a little. We'll give you that. Okay, so I think we have allowed enough time for everybody to get in. So let's get this conversation started. So, if you all follow my post at all, I made a post a while back about healing. and I kind of went into the dynamics of wound healing and the stages of wound healing. And Shar immediately replied and was like, "We need to talk. We need to do a show about this." And I was like,
Talk about
"We absolutely do," because it's a topic that I feel we talk at most times, but we don't really get into the nitty gritty of what healing really one requires and what it is. So the title for tonight is "So You're Healing," or "So You Say You're Healing,"
it. So you
and
say you're
there is
healing.
a distinct listen because there's a difference between healing and being healed, because healing is a process and there are dimensions to that. Healed is what is the end result of. And most times we don't really know that we are healed from something until that particular point of injury is struck again and we are no longer bothered or we no longer have a reaction to it. And I wrote something while I was getting ready, and I said, I personally feel like most of us have experiences with pain more so than with healing. And I say that because pain is what is inflicted upon us, therefore, not our responsibility in some instances. But healing is a personal responsibility and it requires work. And so you only truly experience healing when you subscribe to the work. Okay. And so when we talk about wound healing, I'm not going to go into all that unless you guys are really science geeks and you like that kind of stuff. I do. I was a health occupation
And
student. I love it. And so when we talk about healing and we talk about what it is, initially when the body is struck or there's a cut or something that happens, what happens automatically is pain, and then our body starts to clot, our blood starts to clot. And the reason the clotting happens and the inflammation happens is to send a notification that pain has occurred or like a wound has occurred. So at that point, the body is trying to send a message to let you know that pain has occurred, right? And then from there, the body starts to scab, it starts to develop new layers of skin. All of that happens though from the inside out. So when we talk about wound healing, there's a scab that typically happens, there's a scar that remains. So we know that this particular place on our body has experienced wound, it has experienced trauma, it's submitted to the process of healing, and now it has a scar as a reminder, right? That is the wound that's on the surface. But there's another kind of wound that often gets left untreated because it's not visible, and those are those internal wounds. And if you've ever watched any of the medical shows on TV, people that have like internal bleeding, there's something that's going in internally. We can't really see it from the surface, but the body is doing what it can to treat it. But we don't necessarily know. Maybe we shouldn't do these types of activities, or we don't know what to prevent ourselves from doing because we don't realize that there's an internal wound that's lacking our attention, right? And so we want to use that as a segue into emotional healing, because so many of us know how to go get a band-aid, so many of us know how to get stitches, so many of us know how to treat what we see on the surface, but I don't think we're doing as great of a job with the emotional healing. And and so I prompted Shar before we got on, and I said there are three segments that I am going to push you on tonight. And I didn't tell her what they are because I wanted to hear her real-time response to these particular areas. And so the first part of emotional healing that is important is we have to get clear on what happened. And so, in order to get clear on what happened, you need to be able to put it into in words, and they don't need to be overcomplicated. So, Shar, let's start with step one. How do we get clear on it? I can hear you.
you're asking, how do we get clear on identifying what the problem is?
Yes.
Acknowledging it. So I was just having this conversation with someone else recently. A lot of the times, and you and I even spoke about this briefly before we got started. A lot of the times, from what I've seen in my short amount of life, is we run so much from just acknowledging that there's a problem. And sometimes it's not even the issue that we have to acknowledge. Sometimes we have to realize the effects of the issue. So maybe we find it hard to express ourselves to someone, or we find it hard to um, be emotional in spaces with loved ones that we have, or we find it hard just being able to have a conversation where someone tells you you're wrong or you offended them. And
Mhm.
that is where you have to go, well, why am I tripping? For me personally, that was my thing. That is still my thing.
Mhm.
Um, I had to become really aware about why it was hard for me to just have conversations with people that I say that I love and I hold to such a high esteem in my life, like
Mhm.
my sister or my parents or just like really close friends, right? Um, and so once you identify that there's those are the effects of it, then you start to realize why you're having an issue or what the root was.
Yeah.
But we can't, a lot of the times, especially within the Black community, I found, because we haven't always had the leisure of having the space to acknowledge that while we're going, we just hit autopilot and then we just keep going and going and going and going and going.
Yep.
And so if we start, and because we are so spiritual as just beings and we're so like in touch with who we really truly are when we go there,
Yeah.
um, we haven't had the convenience of actually tapping into it. So we've always just been like, you'll be fine, get over it, or if you keep going, then you'll get better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And I think that is the reason why a lot of us have learned how to live with trauma, but not even realize that we are living with trauma because we've never been taught to identify the situation and how it's affecting us. You said it. You hit the nail on the head. It is we continue to go, we go, and we go. Instead of stopping for just a moment and saying, you know what, this scenario happened, this is how it's affecting me, and now this is how it is reshaping my reality. So we're not clear.
I think one thing is, first of all, we don't even acknowledge trauma as trauma.
No.
So, like, there's a lot of things that I didn't realize were actually traumatic experiences, or I knew that they were wrong, or like something was wrong, something was dysfunctional, but I didn't, like, in my mind, I was like, maybe that's just how perceive it. Maybe that's
Mhm.
just my perspective. And for the sake of not trying to be negative and not trying to be a pessimistic person, I was just like, well, you get it together, you got to fix yourself, instead of acknowledging, no, that's actually a traumatic experience, and you are going to need someone to help you get through that, because
Yeah,
everything in your life is aiding to that traumatic experience.
absolutely. And when we're not acknowledging trauma, then we see the world through a broken perspective. Because now we filter life through trauma unknowingly because we did not know how to identify it. So, therefore, we did not know how to treat it. We did not have community, like we didn't process it. So, now everything that we look to or the people that we see is through a lens of trauma. And it is eating away at a lot of us and causing us to never fully tap into the life that we have available to us to live because we don't know how to deal with the bumps in the road.
Or we've never seen a different type of life.
No. No, I'll say this. One thing that helped me get clear was not that I wanted to be this far away from what I knew and the people that I loved most, but moving away from your family opened your eyes to a whole lot. And I mean, I moved away from home at 18. And it's not like I moved to another city. I
You
moved to
left.
another state. Like I moved from Portland, Oregon to Houston, Texas. What? Not even a month after I graduated high school. And so there was so much about life that I was still processing. But I'm to the point where I'm free enough to talk about it now. But I was running from trauma. I was running from what I felt was going to continue to eat at me, but I didn't know how to put it into words. And when I got in a foreign land, if you will, all of that started to surface. And I was like, whoa, that's actually not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you just said that you did not know how to put it into words, but you did something. And a lot of times we don't know how to put it into words, but we start doing stuff.
Mm,
Sometimes the stuff we do helps. Sometimes the stuff we do is just even more like mess, just piled on
mm,
top of it. Like we may start working out, right? But,
mm-hmm.
but we don't realize why we're working out, right? Or we don't have a purpose behind why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
And I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but like we're not mindful of what it is that we're trying to fix, or what is just so like making us so uncomfortable, and
Right.
what the discomfort is coming from. So that goes back to just identifying, first of all, this is the problem.
Right.
There's a problem.
There's a
It's not
problem.
normal.
Yeah. We have to. So, step one, you guys, if you're taking your notes, because I told you to get your journal, step one is we have to get clear about what is happening. It's an acknowledgement if you would like to put it into one word. Step two, validate your feelings. I think this is probably the hardest part of healing. You can do it,
I mean, I can, and I'm doing it.
but it's hard. This is where healing gets ugly. This is where healing requires community that you feel safe enough to be vulnerable with. Because when I have to validate my feelings, it is not the opportunity for people to jab at what I feel. This is the moment where I have to get in the mirror and say it and sit in it. Not to set up residence, but if you never affirm how you feel, you don't heal.
Okay. So I'm happy that you said that. This probably was the hardest part of starting the healing process. So we're talking about the healing process right now. We're not even talking about being healed. We're talking about the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
This was the hardest part for me. When I moved to Houston, I moved back to Houston 2015. I
Mm-hmm.
started doing counseling because there was just a lot going on in my life at that time. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
so granted, and I'm gonna be very open and transparent because I told you I would be. So I've battled with depression for years, like
Mm-hmm.
multiple suicide attempts, like battled with it. Most of the time silently. People
Mm.
knew something was wrong, but they didn't know to the extent of how much wrong, because I could cover it
Yeah.
up, because everyone around me was so busy they didn't have to see it, right? Um,
Mm.
but when I went to therapy, it wasn't even the hard part for me wasn't acknowledging that there was a problem. The hard part for me was just validating my feelings,
Mm.
because, and I still to this day am working through that. I feel guilty for how I feel.
Hold on. Don't move past that point. I want you to lean into that. So it was hard to validate it, but then you felt guilty. What triggers the guilt?
So many different things. Okay, so first thing, grew up in church. I love the Lord. My parents are pastors. For most people that do know me, they know my parents are in ministry. I come from a family full of ministers on both ends, grandparents, uncles, aunts. So on both ends, I've got it heavy. Um, and a big majority of my life has always been in the spotlight.
Mm.
And so I've always been open to perception. People always think they know me. They think they know what my intentions are.
Yep.
They think they know how I'm moving. They think because my parents were in a certain position that I thought a certain way of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always taught your life is for the people. Your life isn't for you. And so with that being said is I felt bad for trying to help people and then also be open about what I was going through. Because it was a contradiction. You're helping
Right.
people, but then you're affecting people if you bring your negativity in. So it's always just keep it up, like right here, stay happy. We'll deal with that. We'll pray about that. And granted, I believe in the power of prayer. I'm not belittling any of it.
Right.
However, it didn't allow enough space for me to deal with what my issues were
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so
I
I would
understand.
suppress it, or because I felt like my feelings were inconvenient at the time. There wasn't a lot of space for it, there wasn't a lot of time for it because other people got other problems. And so
Right.
we got to help other people because they got other problems. And so you got the tools, you know what to do, you can fix it, but I don't have the tools. I don't know what to do. I
Right.
don't know it. I don't have it.
I'm
And so
struggling. If I knew
that's
how to fix it, I would be in a different headspace. If I knew that, I would be in a different headspace.
it would have been
Yeah.
done. So I just felt guilty for having my own feelings and still people needing me to be this.
Mm-hmm.
People
Mm-hmm.
needed me to be here, needed me to stay up here. And but I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I've been low for a big majority of my life.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad because I was like, I'm grateful for my life.
Yeah.
And people have always equated depression with being ungrateful. I've
Whew.
always been grateful.
Stop right there. We have to lean into that. We can't drive past that because people make this mass assumption that if you feel sad, if you are having a response to your trauma that's taken you in a low place, that you lack gratitude for your life. And that's not fair to say because I've shared it with you, and I think my listeners know as well. I struggled for a very long time. And it wasn't that I lacked stuff. I had everything a kid could ask for. I was my mother's only child. But there was a point where I didn't know how to use my voice. I didn't feel like my words carry the weight of the song someone wanted me to sing. I didn't feel like, my words were worth their time. And it wasn't that I lacked gratitude, it was just there is something that's going on internally that I've not been given the space to share. And it's making me feel as if I don't belong in this space or that I'm unworthy because I feel sad sometimes. You know, and you said something earlier. You said I felt like my feelings were an inconvenience, and I think that's a lot of what people who are suffering in silence feel. That if I share this with you, one, it skews your perception of me, number one. And then it's going to require time from you that maybe you're not in the position to give me.
Or it's going to make you see something as to maybe you how you've enabled it, how you've contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us don't like to see ourselves. I'm a Scorpio. So sometimes have a little hard time taking constructive criticism.
Y'all
Okay.
have a lot of hard time.
You
Not sometimes.
know, you
Ooh, yeah.
acknowledgement. But you said something earlier, and that was, and I wanted to go back to the part of like gratitude and feeling low or depression or feeling whatever sadness. So like for me, one thing that would trigger it is when I feel like I've been blessed with an ability to do something
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not doing it to the best of my ability, or I feel like I'm not giving the result that is expected of me, then I get even lower because I'm harder on myself.
You're about to
And
go there. You're
and
going there.
and that's why like and this isn't now I'm at the point where I can talk about it and it doesn't completely send me there.
Yeah.
I was talking to my my brother about this earlier today. I was just telling him, I'm like, I feel the weight of it and I feel the pressure of it, but I'm now at the place to where that pressure and that weight doesn't keep me in bed for days.
Mm,
You know, it doesn't make me disappear on people. Like I can still answer phone calls,
mm-hmm,
but there will be a time where I'd be gone. You know, I wouldn't respond to phone calls. I'd want to be in bed. I wouldn't want to eat, or I would eat too much.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but yeah. So
Yeah. One thing that I want to say in this particular segment, too, for all of you guys who are tuned in, is validating your feeling is just to say, this is how I feel. It is not how I'm identified. So let's talk about that. This is how I feel, but I won't be defined by it. I won't be confined by it. I was listening to one of the million podcasts I listened to, and they said, when someone has cancer, you don't call them cancer. You say they have cancer. And they were talking about the importance of, identifying what someone is dealing with, but not using it as a label to define them.
I love that.
And so I think if we could get to the place where we would just acknowledge this is what they feel in this moment, but they are still holistically who they were created to be, people would have a greater appreciation for vulnerability. It's hard to appreciate vulnerability when I feel like it's going to put a label on me that now constricts me.
I love that you
It-
said that. Yeah. I love that you said that. I have a friend who is studying psychology. He's about to finish his doctorate, and whenever I would have like an immense amount of like anxiety, we would talk. I would talk to him with him because I'm like, you get it. I don't need nobody to try to give me scriptures right now. I don't need nobody to also try to tell me all the great things about myself. I need some tools because I'm not going back. And what you said was he does this thing, and I now I do it. It's whenever you're saying you're having a stressful day, instead of saying I'm having a stressful day and claiming that whole thing to be that, you have to detach yourself from that feeling so that you
Mhm.
don't take ownership of it. Because once you
Mm.
start taking ownership of it, then that's how you start perceiving yourself. And then you start acting like that. And you start
Yes.
behaving like that. And then you start believing that everything from here on out is attributed to that part of who you are. And that's not true. So
Yeah.
instead of saying, I'm having a stressful day, or I'm about to lose my mind, or I'm crazy, to say, I feel like I'm going crazy, or I feel like the feeling of going crazy is coming on me, or I feel like
Mhm.
anxiety is trying to attach itself to me. Like it's okay to acknowledge the feeling, but do not take ownership of it. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and just to echo your point, be careful of what you release from your mouth because the brain, I'm a psychology major. I really need to finish my degree. We're working on it.
Let's
Okay.
do this, please.
We're working on it. We're working
Guys,
on
I need you guys in the comments. Tell me
it.
finish, finish, finish.
I'm gonna be a legitimate doctor with my credentials. I promise. It's coming. It's coming. But the thing that you also have to understand is the way the brain works. Whatever you say after I am, the brain accepts as truth, whether it is whether it is not. Which is why you cannot say I'm crazy. The brain responds to what you say after I am as truth. It sends your body into action based on the truth you just professed over yourself. And so acknowledge the feeling, but do not, as Charmaine just mentioned, take ownership of it as an identifier of who you are. It is what you are experiencing in the moment. And the thing that is, I would also say is, you're having a stressful moment. You're not having a stressful day. We have 24 hours in the day. So this 15 minutes is what's stressing me. But look how much more day I have to enjoy if I get clarity on what the issue is, validate how I feel in the moment so that I can move forward. Yes?
That's, guys, I want now. Sorry, this is Jamila's, but
No, go.
this is my world. What I need for you guys to do is while you're taking notes, actually start writing down those feelings. And the reason is because a lot of times we'll listen to something and we won't apply it, but you got to start now. This is not something you put on the shelf because we need everyone to be better. We need to
Better.
heal together. And that is one thing that I actually appreciate about that friend. And he's like, I'm not giving you this for you to take this for later. He was like, no, because I know that there's something that you're trying to deny that you're feeling at this very moment. Let's go through this practice. And I think that's another thing about validating your feelings. Go through the practice as soon as you get the tools. Don't wait. Do it now. Like,
Do it now.
because you're living right now. And it's about being present and being mindful. So you got to get it going. Sorry, I'm done.
Immediately. No, I'm glad you said that because and go through this series of emotion. Okay. So some of us cry, some of us shake, some of us need to just yell, get it out. Because if you're harboring it inside, it's festering. And then what's going to happen is it's going to erupt at an inappropriate time. You're going to lash out at something, you're going to respond incorrectly to something because you still have something that you're suppressing. So just deal with it in the moment. We know my favorite form of expression. I'm just gonna cry it out. I gotta cry it out. I have to what? Journal it out. Y'all know I love a journal. I have them everywhere on this desk.
She
Get
loves it.
it out, Shaniqua, and that's fine, honey.
I,
If that's how you
I
need to
just saw her
respond,
comment.
honey,
I
to
was
get it
like,
out the best way that you can, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Get it out.
I take
It's
deep
better
breaths.
out than in. Didn't your grandma used to tell you that?
Yes. Well,
Well, my grandma did. Better out
one
than
of them did. The other one just said, "If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say it." So
hush your mouth.
I
You
had a lot of not nice things in. But no, I love that you said that. And I know you got to go to the next point. But for me, I have to take deep breaths because I'm studying mindfulness right now, the act of mindfulness and meditation, and it's making me become more present. Because one thing that I would do, especially when I was younger, and my sister, she, thank God for Crystal Moore. I get emotional. Whew. When I think about my sister, because even though like we're like night and day, she has been my saving grace. Once she identified what I was doing. So what I would do as a child, because I felt that guilt, but I felt sad, I would
Mhm.
cry, but I would hold my breath
Oh gosh.
and I just would not breathe. And I would just wouldn't breathe. Or I would hyperventilate because I go into panic attacks and sometimes anxiety attacks like bad. And so I would just hyperventilate, or I just wouldn't breathe at all. And so now, so that I don't go into that, I have to take a deep breath. I
Mhm.
have to feel the air in my lungs. I have to feel my stomach going in and out because it's
Mhm.
reminding me that I'm alive. It's reminding me that that is just a moment. And on the end of that breath, we got a chance to fix it.
We got
So,
a chance to live. We have a
yeah,
chance to live.
a chance to live.
Yeah. That's that takes me out.
Sorry, I'm like, they're sitting right here, and I'm like, I'm not going to drop them.
that takes me out because you have a chance to live. And so the reason we're talking about healing is because we have both been in the trenches with healing and trauma and coming to the other side of it. And so honestly, I tried to type it all out and then Facebook did something stupid. But I was really at the end of what I was saying was we really just hope that our transparency about our journeys really helps you guys. It's not just to be on Facebook Live for the sake of being live. It's not just about doing a show for the sake of being doing a show. Like it is truly our hope that as we explain to you what our moments were, that you find yourself somewhere in there able to find a tool that works for you, because I want to surround myself and be able to cultivate healed people.
People.
Healed people. I do not care about happy people. I want you to be healed because healing will beget joy. But if we're not healed, we can't experience that. And so the final part, and Shar, you talked about your how your ally was helping you address and correct the issue. And so the final step when we're talking about emotional healing is determining a course correction. And so you have to use the information that you gathered from getting clarity and the information that you gathered from how you feel. And now we have to what? We have to put some action behind it. It is all about activation. It is not enough to just sit there in it. And what I find is most people stop at step 2 and they form an identity around it. I'm going to jump on my soapbox really quick and then I'm going to go back to the point. But what I find is it is a lot easier to identify with an emotion, build an identity around the emotion, and then become justified because what someone did or inflicted upon us or the trauma that we are experiencing. And so now we form an identity around that thing. And we're almost become into covenant with it almost. It's like so hard for us to detach from.
Okay, break that down in the simplest term.
In the simplest term, so I'm angry. Someone said something to me, someone did something to me, I'm angry. So now I'm going to sit in my anger and justify how I am sharp with other people. And I am going to justify it with that's just how I am. It's not how I am, it's who I've become. And I've become this because what I did not do next. I identified my or validated my emotion and I stayed there. I stayed there. And so many of us stay there. I've been, I have been one to stay. I stayed in I'm angry for years. And I stayed and I'm angry for years only to find out when I finally went to counseling that I wasn't angry. I was afraid and I was hurt. But I didn't have the right words because nobody was able to help me see it through a different perspective. So I presented myself to the world as very guarded and angry. And I was just really afraid. And I had been bruised at my core, and I did not know how to communicate that.
I love that you said that. So for me, when I went through counseling, I didn't realize that my sarcasm was that behavior. And so there's a difference
Mm.
between having a good sense of humor and being sarcastic. I
Mm-hmm.
was sarcastic, and that was my way of hurting people that I felt were intentionally hurting me. So
Mm.
growing up, I had some friends, but then like in the church, I had friends that I was forced to be friends with.
Yeah.
And so behind closed doors, they didn't like me. I was bullied. It was it was some
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It was some stuff. And not even just them, it was their parents. It was adults who, like I said, had a perception of me based off of what my parents did.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like their way of like, you're not better than us, so let's crack you down. And
Ooh.
don't say anything because then, at the end of the day, you're a child, so it's your place to stay as a child. And because of how I was raised, I wasn't gonna talk back and I wasn't gonna get beat because my parents are the parents that will
I
let
you
you
gotta
beat
stop
me,
right there.
okay? They'll let you beat
Stop
me.
right there. You have to stop right there. Go back. I need to rewind.
Okay.
I need to rewind to the point of you're not better than us. So let's chip away at you. And don't say anything, but stay in a child's place. That happens to adults.
A lot.
That happens to adults. And you chip away and you find their point of vulnerability. And you chip and you chip and you chip and you chip until you get the response out of them that will validate how you feel about them. And so I just kind of want you guys to hear that and think about some scenarios where you found yourself maybe in something similar and or even maybe you're in it currently and you see people trying to chip away at you because you're not better than them. Be mindful of your response to them. Because if you respond in a way that justifies their perception of you, they win. That is hard. That is hard. I take this quote with me everywhere, and it's silence is better than ignorance because I've been in the same position, even as an adult, where people have chipped and chipped away at me and made some pretty derogatory statements about me. And I sat there and I took it. Now, I may not have said anything verbally, but I made a decision internally about how I was going to allow you to engage with me going forward. But in that moment, I'm not going to let you pull a response out of me that's going to diminish my character and validate how you see me. And so when you couldn't say anything, Shar, what did you do?
Well, I just became a sarcastic adult. Like as soon as I could become sarcastic or start speaking up for myself, I would use humor because I'm a person, I study people. I don't care what I sit. That's why I'm able to be around different types of persons. I
Mm-hmm.
sit and I study people's behavior and I sit and I watch. And I think a lot of that has to do with being bullied or being pushed to the side or being different. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would just sit and try to, because for me, studying people was so that I could emulate something that was more acceptable to people other than who I really was. So I would sit and study so that I can emulate something that people will want to be around or maybe find, a little bit more pleasant. But instead, because there was hurt and pain behind it, it actually became sarcasm. So I would
Mm.
use my sarcasm to hit their weakest parts or say things to become more likable and funnier. But in the reality, I was hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't know is I became even worse to the people that were closest to me. So people who have had to deal with the Charmaine, the real Charmaine, the very bitter Charmaine before and during the healing process, Charmaine, like my sister. And I say my sister all the time because I absolutely love Crystal Dion Moore. I will say it to until my breath is gone from my body. I love my sister, but she has definitely had to deal with me before and during the healing process that I'm in
Mm-hmm.
right now. So yeah, that was my thing, and my therapist was like, you use sarcasm as your mechanism
It's your
to either
weapon.
get people off of you so that they don't realize that you're hurting, or at your way to have your voice instead of actually just using your voice because you're afraid to speak. And for me, my fear of speech was as soon as I become who I really am and not the person that I have learned to emulate, then people won't be around or that it won't be acceptable. And so, for the sake of getting along, I would do all these different things. And that was my coping mechanism. And so now, because I'm becoming more mindful, if I do say something sarcastic, I try not to let the day go down because I still believe that scripture.
I'll let
I'm
the
not letting
sun
no
set.
day go down with no wrath. I ain't gonna have no problems, no drama with you. If I knowingly know that I've done something or I've stepped out of line, I'm gonna try to end that day before I lay my head down and get it right. So, but that's
Yeah.
me being mindful. But I had to acknowledge that. Like, and I had to have somebody who was like, you ain't funny. Your sarcasm is not nice. And you weak because you hiding.
But you said
Go
something that about took me out, but I don't want to cut you off, so I wrote it down.
ahead. Sorry. I know I was talking. Go ahead.
No, I because I wanted you to get that out, but I wanted to come back to this because it is such a true reality for so many people. They emulate what is more acceptable or what they think is going to be more acceptable than presenting them their true selves. And I've done it. Like I've done it. For the longest growing up as a kid, I just stuck out like a sore thumb. Like I was the oddball out. Everybody else in my family is pretty much taller. They have long legs. I was this short, more thick girl. It was hard to find my rhythm or find my place, right? And so I started wearing makeup far too early because I didn't feel like just presenting Jamila would be authentic enough. So I wanted to find myself in crowds where I would gain automatic acceptance. So I was a cheerleader because who doesn't love the cheerleaders, right? So I wear the little skimpy short skirt and everybody's like, "Ooh, yes." And we gain automatic acceptance, right? But internally, I was crawling out of my skin. I hated that uniform. I did not actually want to be that exposed. I actually preferred dancing, but my mom hated it and said it was not a sport. She was like, that is not a sport.
Dang.
Go play basketball. And I was like, so rude. So, but I mean, I was a dancer for the longest and I loved that. And I found peace in that because I used the movement to express my inner feeling. Whoa.
Same, 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 same. Come on, let it out. It's okay.
Whoa, is that still a pain point? Like, wow, did not see that coming. Um, but I use the movement as a form of freedom, you know? And you could use the movement to just express everything that was internal and you couldn't just get out, but you could dance and you could move and you could be free in that because I didn't have it. Like there was so much of me that was hidden as a kid and I just couldn't get it out. But so I would lead cheer practice and I would long to be able to go dance and just move and be free. Right. And so I know that this is a case for a lot of people. I don't really care what sector you find yourself in. There's a difference between having a role model and and then trying to fit into somebody else's mode of who you should be. There's a difference. And so I just kind of want us to be cognizant of that because you can look up to someone and there can be parts of them that you admire, but you should never over evolve out of yourself because you admire some qualities in them. Like you actually don't know what it takes for that person to get up every day and be that person, but you can wake up and be 100% you every day.
And I love that you said that. But one thing is, your environment has to teach you that it's okay to aspire to be an archetype of someone, but still be who you are.
Yeah.
And and most people don't understand that because
No.
all we know is just trying to, like, in our minds, we're like, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a fireman. So the whole time you're trying to become this persona of what that looks like
Yeah.
instead of being who you are and just wanting that occupation. And
Yes.
so people that we look up to, we're like, I want to be like them. So we try to walk like them. We do
Yeah.
the emulating. We try to walk like them. We try to talk like them. We try to be this. We try to be that. But then we also don't realize that we're fighting who we were created to be.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and and that's that trauma. And sometimes it's not other people. Sometimes it's just us
It's just us.
being
It's
too
just
afraid to just be us.
yeah. I will say in my profession, when I put on my HR hat and I ask people, what's their ideal job? They'll give me a title and I'll say, great. What are the things or the functions that you love most about what you do? And I will steer the conversation more toward the thing that you love to do, because sometimes it's not the title that you need to ascribe to. It is the thing that you are passionate about. It is a thing that, gives you a reason to wake up in the morning. And so we have been programmed, and I do say programmed because I do feel like we're programmed. We program our children from elementary to lock into this identity without the freedom to find what it is that you enjoy. What makes your heart sing? Like what, and I don't ever want to say, what would you do if you didn't get paid? Because we need money.
Mhm.
It's a
This is
currency.
America.
This is America. Okay. So there is no, oh, we could, no, even if, no, no, that's not, I'm not going down that path. But what is the thing that really is the innate ability that is you? And lean into that. And I feel like so many of us in the healing process mimic what somebody else did to the point that we never feel what we need to feel about the process. So we say we're healing, but really we're coping. We're just coping.
We're just coping.
We're just coping and we're going through the motions. And then you wake up one day and you're like, I feel worse than I did yesterday, or when I thought I was doing, because you're coping, and we're self-soothing.
With a lot of different things.
Yeah. And so just going back through the steps, guys, because this is about tools and application. You got to get clarity. Okay, so that's acknowledgement. Then you have to validate how you feel, but not build an identity around it. It's what you feel. And then thirdly, we have to have course correction. Course correction, and I'm going to throw this out there because yes, I'm a psychology major and I believe wholeheartedly. Go to a licensed professional counselor, please. I listened to something today and it says you have to get this level of care and attention from people who don't need your love.
Oh, say that again.
You have to get this type of coaching and path course correction from people who don't need your love, because ultimately they're subscribing to making sure that the best version of you surfaces. So they don't care if you don't like them. They're not tied to that. They're tied to helping you heal. They're tied to helping you come on the other side of those feelings. And what we often do, and no, I am not a church basher. No, I am not. So please don't take this out of context. But well intentioned does not replace professional training. Okay. And there are a lot of people bleeding at the expense of well intention. Okay. So please get a licensed professional counselor. There are a lot of resources out there now. We are in a very tech savvy world. You can do it on your smartphone now. You can have virtual visits. There are a lot of resources out there that are free if it's beyond your financial ability to pay for these types of sessions. But you gotta get help, because this needs to be something that you make a priority, and then it's going to require a level of commitment that a phone conversation with somebody who needs your love can't offer you.
Yeah, because they need you to, and I love that you said that because they need you. Oh, they need you to survive a lot of times for them. So like, and that's one thing that I had to acknowledge. It's like you keep going to people, and it's great to have friends, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to use my friends as my counselor, or unless this is like your field of study. Like I can't do it, because I also acknowledge that there is a bias in any opinion that they give me,
Yes.
because a counselor is like, I'm going to give you these tools, I'm going to show you what is going on with you, and it's up to you to put in the work. But your friend is like, I need you to survive, because they're thinking of the absence of you out of their life.
Yep.
And so it is maybe a little bit more biased, because they can only help you from what they would feel if you were gone, or if you weren't
Yeah.
present, if you weren't okay. And so you do need somebody who does not benefit anything from you getting better, anything from you healing, other than the fact that they know that they help someone else
They
equip
did their
themselves.
job. They showed up for work and they did their job. Because to your point, a lot of people, I'm choosing my words carefully. A
Look,
lot of
me too.
people benefit from the broken version of you. The unhealed and unprocessed version of you is profitable to a lot of people. It's profitable to organizations because you've not identified your worth, so they can give you what they will, and they continue to generate revenue that funds their dreams. Ministries do it because you will function in this capacity without evolving out of it, and so this is one area that we no longer have to worry about staffing. Friends do it because as long as I can hang out with you and we can have this conversation, you don't require me to grow. There are people who benefit from the broken version of you. The only person who doesn't is you.
or you're more likable unhealed
Ooh,
because you don't ask anything. So you don't require anybody. You don't require anything. So you're not requiring in work. You're not requiring management to uphold their end or to pay you at your value.
right,
In church, you're not requiring anyone to pour back into you the way that they're supposed to and live to the standards that they preach to you. To your
right.
friends, you're not requiring their support and their them showing up for you the way that you show up for them. So a lot in your relationships, you're not fussing or you're not trying to hold your partner or accountable at all because you just take whatever you get. You have lack of boundaries, lack of self-value. So you're just a free for all for everybody.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of people get to benefit off of you being broken because it all comes down to acknowledgement, living with feeling it and embracing it and then putting into action. When you put these three things into action, boundaries start getting set, and once you
Yes.
start setting boundaries, people can't dictate what you do with your life, and you won't start questioning some of the toxic behaviors that you have enabled from yourself and from other people. And that
Absolutely.
for me has been my biggest thing. I started this year out, I took some, and I should have known, and I should have known, and I should have known. Let me say this because I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be very candid. I started this year out and God was putting it on my heart. He was like, boundaries, you need to fix it. You need to get some boundaries. And for me, it's because everybody's like, oh, you do so much and you do so much. That's not a compliment to me. To me, that means I'm dysfunctional. When people tell me I'm a busybody, in my head, I'm saying I'm dysfunctional because I've identified the problem. Second,
Mm-hmm.
I'm living with the feeling of what that does to me. I'm drained, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm not happy, I can't meditate, I ain't got time for God. So I'm over here questioning my spirituality. Like there's all these
Mm-hmm.
different things. And so now I had to get to the putting into action part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
My mentor, Latoya Hurley, who I love so much, innovative marketing. Hey, girl. She's really big about action items. She's like, okay, we've done all these processes. She's like, now let's put it into action. What's the next step?
Listen.
In the beginning of the year, God was like, you talking a big game, but you ain't putting nothing into action about your boundaries. So I started reading about it. I started doing it. And like literally every month, it's like God is like, all right, we're
Girl.
leveling up. Oh, I'm sorry. We're leveling up on the boundaries. We're leveling up on the boundaries. And so it literally came as a whirlwind for me as well. And I had to acknowledge that as soon as I started setting those boundaries. That's the book. Shout out to my aunt Tammy, Lady Tammy Stewart, who had me. I hate audiobooks, first of all, guys. I absolutely hate audiobooks. Okay. And so she was like, well, listen to the audiobook while you're cleaning and then go back and read. And I did that. That audiobook had me in my closet while I was cleaning because that's therapy for me. That's when I start going through my healing process. I clean out my closet, I take it all out. I'm in that closet on the floor crying, going,
Yes.
God, I need boundaries. I need boundaries. That book, everybody needs to read this book.
Get this book.
Get
It is
that
by
book.
Dr. Henry Cloud. So I read this book 3 years ago. This is when my life changed dramatically. I read this book 3 years ago, but there is a follow-up book to this. Okay. So there is boundaries, and then the next book is Life Beyond Boundaries. Because sometimes we use them as cages instead of fences. Okay. So to your point, when you get clear and you start doing course correction and you start setting boundaries, you really have an eye-opening experience of the people in your life, because people who cannot respect your boundaries don't value you. So just it will be an eye-opening experience. And what we're telling you guys, there will be moments of this process where you are alone. There's going to be times where you have to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice and silence the voice of others. Because yes, ma'am, go ahead.
No, sorry. And I wanted to just, I'm gonna let you finish, but I sound like Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish. No, but what you were saying is you will be alone. But you have to realize, like you said earlier, do not internalize that as people are leaving you because you're unlikable or because they don't love you. They don't have the capacity within themselves. They have not applied these 3 steps yet either. So they have not realized the behaviors that they have as well. So it gives you more grace because you go, well, I'm going to be alone, but I'm not mad at those people for leaving me while I'm setting my boundaries. I'm
Yeah,
acknowledging that they're not yet at the capacity to start doing it for themselves. So they
exactly.
have to react a certain way. But continue.
Exactly. No, I
Sorry.
love that because capacity is what I talk about all the time. If you follow me, you know I'm a big person about capacity and accepting one's capacity, but then realigning them. And if you need to hear more about that, go back and watch the Friends in Them episode that I did because I talk about that a whole lot. Um, but in setting the boundaries, first and foremost, you will only people will only honor boundaries that they see you honor. So when you don't honor your own boundaries, people are least likely to acknowledge, accept, or even subscribe to a boundary that you set for them because they know you move the line based on circumstances. So when we are healing, this is a time where you've had to get clarity and you've got to get clear about how you're going to maneuver with the understanding that there is some of this that's individualistic. It is because it's you, it's your life, it's you trying to live out your purpose. Yes, there are parts of this journey that require collaboration. There is a lot of collaboration that needs to happen. But until you understand you and see your life beyond the trauma that you've experienced, you will collaborate with wrong partners, which is just going to cause more trauma in your life. So there is a period, and I am getting more and more clear on this. Like from August onward, it has been a pretty eye-opening season for me. I'll say that. But when you get clear about what you're not going to accept, when you get clear about I'm going to lean into the truth of who I am. And I'm gonna say this because I was talking to my husband about it, and I said I think that the biggest challenge is often when you have identified yourself based on your works and then you're no longer doing them. And so when you identified yourself based on your contributions and then you're no longer do this is so hard to talk about. And then you're no longer doing them. And so you have to heal from that fractured identity because you should have never identified yourself based on your works. Your works affirm who you are, but they don't define who you are. And so when you go through a period of self identifying based on your works, and you're no longer doing that, it can send you into a very dark place until you heal your lens. And when you heal your lens and you acknowledge it was me all along, this was just an expression of me, and I'm no less worthy because I'm not doing the works. That's a healing that is hard. It takes a lot of time, but when you come on the other side of that, there's so much freedom and joy, but it's hard and it's dark. It's very lonely, but we have the bandwidth to do it. We do. There's going to be some days where you got to go back to that self validation of your feelings because you might feel it for a long time.
Yourself a lot. Do that. That's a lot. That's that self love. That's what self esteem and self love is. It's not, I'm beautiful, I'm fine, I'm this. It's, no, this is your capacity. So let's go through this. You're stronger than this. You can do this. You can face this. This is not who you are. This is the circumstances you're going through. This is the process you're going through. And because of this, you are figuring out how you function in this world. You're figuring out, how you really actually attribute to what you actually attribute to this world. Not that, like you said, not the works that you do, but you being present, being fully who you are is helping other people. You're doing, you're changing the trajectory of your family. Like that's what self-love and self-esteem really is. It's that healthy self-talk and healthy
Yeah.
evaluation.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we have
You got
more,
me on the works
but
part.
we're at so I have to let you guys go. We have so much more to talk about. There's a whole nother segment that I haven't gotten to, and it's relational healing, but we're gonna have to do that at another time because there's so much more to that. But I really feel like we hit a lot of points today. And I think we have gotten you to the position to where you can start to activate. And ultimately that's the goal, not to just hear, but to activate. And we are conversationalists. Like we love to do this. Like we could do this until midnight. But I have an
Right.
8-year-old, 9-year-old who's looking at me like it's my bedtime. You got to pray over me so I can go to sleep. Um,
Amen.
and
Woo!
so Char, we got to come back and do the second piece because we still have so much to talk about because relational healing is key. And but you have to do the individual healing before you can get into the emotion or the relational. Hold on, what did they say?
Yeah, I love that comment.
Yep, someone just posted something that I can't do it because it's gonna make me cry. I can't read that comment. I'm gonna read it after.
I'm gonna read it.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
People get so attached to those works, and that becomes your value to them. You can't help but to mistakenly identify as just a person of works. It's very difficult to get out of that. I'm glad you both mentioned that. And I completely agree because like I was saying, that's what made me do the boundaries. A lot of people identify me, Charmaine, as what I do, what I attribute to people, how I help them get through their rough patches. But that's not even close to who I
Yeah,
am.
it's scratching the surface.
It's just the surface.
It's scratching the surface. But I will say, it's easier to subscribe to the works of you when you don't when you can't handle the capacity of who I am. So it's easier for you to subscribe to the part of me that's easily acceptable or digestible and is beneficial. But to acknowledge the capacity of me is going to require more of you. And that may not be what you're willing to give. And so my work gets diminished to what you can handle. Oh, there's so much to that.
I literally
There's
am over here like, don't make me get on my soapbox.
there's so much to that. And you guys, I know I said at the top of this, but I gotta say it again. I love Charmaine. Again, I do feel like she came to earth and then went back to heaven and then she came back because the woman has the wisdom that most people don't. And I love that, and it's never going to be a conversation that isn't profitable and mutually beneficial, and I love that about her. And she's pulling me out of my comfort zone, like she's demanding more of me, like even in
Here I
this
am.
space. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But we're gonna come
Wouldn't
back, you
y'all love
guys.
to see Thursdays on Jamila on mainstream TV and media and have her do her retreats and have her do live shows and travel and have books and yes, okay, I see the hearts, I see the likes. You guys agree. So yes, yes,
I'm working on it, guys.
you're
I'm
here
working.
already. You're already
I'm working
there.
on it.
Yeah.
So we have to come back because the second part of this is relational healing,
Do it.
and it's deep. Like I have a whole page of notes just for that part. It's really deep. So maybe we'll come back. Let me check her schedule because you know she is busy. Um Charmaine is booked, child. Um, so let me see when I can get her back on. We will get this scheduled. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Your journal prompt, because you know I never leave you with that one. Your journal prompt is, where am I in my healing journey? So first step is what? Identifying what it is. So have I identified it? Step 2, am I validating my feelings? Step 3, am I doing path course correction? Where are you? Get serious about it. Um, get serious about it. I really, you guys, this time of year, one of the reasons why I always talk about emotional wellness at this time of year is because seasonal depression runs rapid in the last quarter of the year, and you will find yourself slipping into like very dark spaces very quickly if you don't have a handle on your emotional well-being. So I'm not doing this just because this is my life's work. This is what I am most passionate about, and so I want to give you tools because I want to see people healed for real. Like I want you to smile from a place of joy and not from a place of having to put on or be picture perfect because someone's in your face. I want you to smile from a place of joy. And I know if you are one because I have discernment. But there's an aura that is really hedged around people that are smiling from a place of joy. So I love you guys so much. Mwah! Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.